How should we get started here? Should I throw the first question out there?
Yeah, I know that is cool.
Yeah, okay. Well, we heard a little bit earlier today about how how the timing of the beginning of the Dreamkeeper initiative, the community engagement that happened across San Francisco really came around the time of sort of George Floyd, that summer of energy around racial equity and anti-racism. But tell us a little bit about, Dr. Sai, what you know about how did city government build the political will? You leverage that to build the political will to really make an investment and a commitment of that size.
Sure, I think with respect to building political will to make an intentional investment in the Black community, it helps to have a mayor with lived experience as a Black woman who is very proud of her story of growing up in public housing and not imagining being able to sit in a mayoral seat, but that happening, having at the time the leader of the Board of Supervisors, who was the president, Shaman Walton, also being a child in San Francisco and being very open about his story in terms of having a relationship or being impacted by the criminal justice system as someone who was incarcerated at a young age, and so that lived experience. And then Director Davis, as someone who shares that she's not from the city but has deep roots in the city and a deep love for San Francisco. So you put three Black leaders into a room in a catastrophic event such as George Floyd that made waves across the globe. There's no question about what to do next, but to take action and but to have that political will. It was almost a divine opportunity to have the messaging of Black Lives Matter, and then to have community organized around that and to hold government accountable. So couple lived experience with an affinity for San Francisco and a response to do something for Black people in San Francisco, and that is how the Dreamkeeper initiative came about.
Thank you.
Wait, I want to add something. You called our mayor, I think you said she was a child of San Francisco. So my father, who is passed, and how old was he? He was born in 1933. But he was so proud of that little girl, Mayor running great, And so for her, she's like the ancestors' dream. So they were also the hope. And so not just the children of San Francisco, but the hope. And so that's beautiful to be a part of the hope and the legacy. So I thank you. And so she being a humble Dr. Sai, she also is the hope of San Francisco. Because yeah, she's our own. She went and got her education. And then so yeah, just have to call that out too. So DKI, you are the dream that you're now trying.
I guess I have a question for you, three doctors. Dr. Lilly, Dr. Love, Dr. Sai. And it's regarding, your biggest hope, your biggest possibility for what, if you look at what would San Francisco look like 10, let's say 20 years from now. And because of this ground sort of underlying substantive work, this foundational work that's happening now, what are some of the things, some of the experiences that Black San Franciscans will be operating in? How will they be living? How will they be existing if DKI really lives up to its fullest potential? And again, as Jose pointed out, not just the resource, but a conduit and a facilitator for San Francisco to become an anti-racist city that allows Black San Franciscans true enfranchisement? What are some of the things that if you could just sort of wish and dream as educators of the youth in San Francisco, what would that look like for you 20 years from now? DKI at its highest potential. Just some thoughts, I guess.
I always have something to say. For me, I'm the senior of the group, and I know when I was growing up in the Bay Area, all I saw, I'm from the East Bay, but I'm from the Bay Area, I saw a lot of Black-owned businesses. I saw a lot of Black mail carriers and street sweepers and not so much bus drivers, but they were in our Black community, And I know as a child, I would say, I know I'm going to be somebody. I'm going to be able to do something. I know my mom and my dad told me, you have to get your education. I went to an all-Black high school. I am a product of Climate High School. We had the largest graduating class, the largest number of students who were accepted to universities. And so education, we knew was the key to our success. I envision education being that message again, knowledge, education, so that our future San Franciscans, our future Bay Areans can be more accomplished. And education doesn't always mean you have to have a doctorate degree. It doesn't always mean that you have to go to college, but have an education and a vocation so that you can sustain the dream. I feel without it, and maybe because I'm old school, but I really feel that that's one of the keys to success. So I would envision putting more money into education, into vocation, into the universities everywhere, more access, so that our youth understand that that is the key to success. Because you can't take what you learn. They may take everything from you, but you can't take what you have. Education. And so, the vocation, education. My father also was he the first Black, or one of the first to actually have a taxi medallion. And a taxi medallion, in order to own a taxi cab, you have to have a medallion in the city, right? And then now there's Uber and all of that, right? So he was able to make an excellent living in San Francisco. Way back then, I go to a lot of the recreation meetings and a lot of other things, and I listen to the things that they're saying, and I always get concerned about when, okay, so now I've gotten a house, I still need a job. I still need to be able to educate my children, et cetera, et cetera. So the holisticness of, it has to be holistic. It has to be, and it has to be, and it has to be. One of the good things about DKI, the focus groups, when they talked about giving, like having any kind of event and they needed to buy food, they went to Black folks. I was like, yay, right? So DKI was helping them to understand how to keep the Black dollars in the Black community, right? right? So that's a beautiful thing. So I think the people who participated, they're starting to get this. I mean, they love the fact that like, we got some money to live our dream. And they see that we need to do more. Because I think somewhere in one of your PowerPoints, who said this, something about you could end up re-traumatizing. You give, was that? I think that was your so anyway, but you give me this, and I start doing it, it's feeling good, then you take it away, it's actually worse. So, yeah, longevity, sustainability, holistic, all of those things that you need to make me black and whole. Don't just give me a house, you know, that you do all of that stuff. So I think that's I can see how DKI could do that. But you have to keep funding it. You have to keep doing all of these things, the research on it, and find out this work, this didn't, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, it's a beautiful model, yes, yes. And it's a dream, but make the dream my reality all the time. That's it.
Yeah, I think what I would add to that question, Derek, is much of the answer is embedded in the vision of the initiative in many ways, which is creating and fostering an environment where Black San Franciscans can experience prosperity, liberation, and can imagine a future in San Francisco. So until San Francisco as a city, until city government understands and believes that prosperity for Black San Franciscans is our birthright, then the future is great. But I want, as someone who was charged with, to Dr. Pelly's point, leading the initiative, want Black San Francisco and our allies and accomplices alike to believe and know that prosperity in the city is our birthright. And when we think about liberation, that comes with power and agency. To be able to travel throughout San Francisco, to have access to wealth, to have access to places and spaces that we once did not believe we were deserving of. But an initiative such as this makes it known that we're absolutely worth and deserving of being exposed to beautiful rooms with golden chandeliers, to being exposed to nice parks with sound structures, with sound play structures, so our children can play. And then finally, that imagining a future in San Francisco is really the generational piece. So as Dr. Nunley and Lucky referenced education and sustaining, and folks like me being the hope, I too want my children, when they come, and my children's children to know that San Francisco loves them just as much as we as Black people love San Francisco and have contributed, have built that city. We want it to love us back.
Dr. Sy, you recently were part of one of the supervisors having a hearing on the impact of the Dreamkeeper initiative just a month and a half ago or so. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how the community played a role? What was their response? Because obviously that hearing was very consequential to the continued funding for the Dreamkeeper initiative. And I'd like to kind of hear from you a little bit, because I wasn't able to be there. What was that room like? How did you feel about how the community showed up?
So related to the hearing, I felt it is such a blessing. I felt full, if I could describe it. I mean, we saw mac and cheese and the variations of potato salad earlier and sweet potato pie, and I felt full. You get a whole bunch of organizers, Black organizers, allies and accomplices in the room, and you know that movement is about to happen. I mean, we can date back thousands of years in terms of the organizing that happens in the Black community and in Indigenous communities. And so that the hearing, we set out to accomplish the goal of having the Dreamkeeper Initiative funding sustained. And we also separately set out to make, there was a hearing also about reparations and to make the distinction between the two. And I think we did accomplish that goal in terms of educating the new board of supervisors who were elected what we are as an initiative, the impact that we've had, and that the Black diaspora is just that. The Black folks are, what's the word, diasporatic, is that we are all over San Francisco.
Yes.
We are not just concentrated in particular communities, as folks assume, but we are representatives of all 11 supervisors, and having them know that their concentration and investment in terms of budgetary investment, legislation that would promote Black prosperity and liberation is, means that everyone will benefit. And so I think the data that was shared here today from the evaluation, we wanted to show that those numbers are reflective of not only Black San Francisco, but also non-Black San Francisco. And so we proudly stand behind, yes, DKI is unapologetically meant to invest in the Black community, and we know when we invest in the Black community that the entire city benefits and wins. And so that hearing, hundreds of community members showed up in person and virtually. I think I hadn't experienced a moment like that in quite some time in city government, where we came together as a community to organize, to share our voices, to let folks know, like, we are watching you. We're here to hold you accountable, and when it comes time to pass and approve the budget, make sure that DKI is not on the table and not in the discussion in terms of cuts. And so I do think that was accomplished.
Yeah. I want to share too, at that particular hearing, was it Dr. Davis or Dr. Side? One of them asked us to, Jamulia Research, to come with some of our students, right? And we called it a session, right? So she said something to this effect. I used to be the one they do the research on, now I'm doing the research. And that was just like, wow, you know, that full circle. So that was, you know, be careful not to say the name, but yeah, that was it.
Dr. Davis, I have a question for you.
We'll come to you, Queen.
I would like for you to share with us a little bit about what you shared with me about the formation of the department that you now lead, the Human Rights Commission, and what you found about how the Human Rights Commission, when it was formed decades ago, it was clear that it was meant for the Black community, and in many ways it was also clear that how that came about, it was not designed to succeed in the long term. Can you share with us a little bit about the formation of the Human Rights Commission and the thing that you shared with me and Dr. James Spingola about what you found in that research?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, much like Dr. Sy talks about the evolution of the Dreamkeeper Initiative, you know, during the 50s and 60s when there were uprisings and revolts and resistance in other locales around the country, San Francisco said, well, let's put together a committee to come up with some recommendations and to really try and placate people so that that doesn't happen here. So the intention was to just kind of keep people who were upset about the fact that you couldn't go into certain hotels, or that you couldn't buy from certain car dealerships, or even some of the covenants that exist now that say don't sell this house to Black people. It was created. The thing about it is that it was only meant to be a committee for a short span of time, focused on just making sure that there were no what they call riots at that point in time. It evolved into the commission with recommendations on what to do, and I think, you know, someone who's born in the South, the word Negro does not impact me the way that it does other folks, and so I think people read documents from the 50s and 60s and see color and see Negro, and like all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, this is, but that was the language, and there are still a lot of people of a certain generation that would prefer to be called colored, and would prefer to be called Negro, because that's what they identify with. But a lot of the documents, even from organizations that were focused on policies like SPUR and others, were focused on like the idea of light and that we're trying to help these people by redoing their neighborhoods, even though they're being pushed out. So there was a lot that was like, yeah, they created this committee, but it really was to contain people and their ideas and to keep those from the impact and the evolution. It was really about like, where are we gonna put them and not so much how we can actually change the policies.
And we're in Chicago today. This city will have a new mayor within weeks. Is there any piece of advice that you think, having been such an effective leader in the city of San Francisco on this issue, is there any advice that you would offer the incoming administration of this city in terms of lessons that you think are really important for any city to take away from this experiment that's happening in San Francisco?
I just feel like people always say it, it's become cliche, but power is in the people, right? The power lies with the people. And I think, the idea that you want to build something, you want to do something on behalf of people you've never spoken to is not effective ever. And so as we talk about how to address income disparities or violence prevention or public safety, the answers actually lie with the people who are most directly impacted by it. But folks don't want to talk to them, they don't want to necessarily engage with them. And I would say the best strategy, which on a personal level, what has always saved me are my relationships in community, right? The impact, the ability to do the work is because there are people who, when the time comes, which is what we saw in San Francisco when the Dreamkeeper Initiative hearing was happening, when reparations hearing was happening, is that the people came out and they spoke for themselves. And later somebody told me, oh, people weren't happy with the presentations or something. People meant Black folks. And I was like, there were over 100 people that spoke. There were phone lines that were open. Nobody called in. And so the threat of like organizing the Black people would make somebody like, I couldn't speak up. Just shows the power of the people. And I'm saying in regards to Black folks, but it's just in general, when folks show up and they speak their truth, it's very powerful and it changes. And so if you want to do the work, do it in lockstep and not from a podium preaching to you.
What about you, Dr. Sy? Any other pieces of advice for people in Chicago, people in other cities that want to learn from this?
I mean, I plus one what Dr. Davis said, and what's coming up for me is having a courageous spirit. So yes, the power is in the people, and particularly in government, we have to be willing to be courageous and to be creative and to be collaborative. That was an alliteration, I guess, of the 3 C's. So we had 5 C's earlier, but it does take a level of unapologetic courage to be as intentional as the Dreamkeeper Initiative has been, and I think any effort across the country where folks are particularly being race-based are important to be courageous and take those risks. And then we also have to be creative because government can be very stagnant and very bureaucratic. And so in what ways can we be creative with community and collaborative with community to execute the work in a way that will work for those we intend to serve?
I think we have time for one more question. Anybody in the audience? Question for Ken? Yeah. Oh, I think that worked. There you go.
I wanted to ask a question to you about education because I agree with you that education is a very, very important component of what we need in the Black community. But when you look at the numbers in our education system, the racism in the curriculum, and you look at the racism that our children have to deal with in schools, with the Dreamkeeper Initiative, what does that look like to really re-engage and invest into education and curriculum and education system that work for Black kids.
Well, first, I would love to see more Black teachers, Black male teachers in the classrooms to energize, enlighten, enrich, I'm gonna use the E's,
Excite.
and excite our children to see educators like them. So I would like to see more scholarships going to our high school students to get in education. I would like to see more money being invested in teachers who are going into school, public school system, because they don't get paid enough. And so, multiple levels, more money going in for our students, our children, our youth to go to school to get a teaching degree. And pay them more money. Pay them more money to teach. You know, we're promoting and getting incentives, put it in the Department of Education for our Black educators to be in schools with our children, so they can have role models. Did I?
Yeah, I think that's where the part was just the curriculum, because not in California, across the country, when it comes to the Black curriculum, it's like how do we push that needle to really change curriculum that educates our young people.
So, okay, so when you talk about curriculum and public education, you immediately are going to run up against a wall, because I'm a teacher educator, and Dr. Lucky, I just want to say the beauty of Dr. Lucky, she's an educator and a clinician, so she brings this both things. So, for me, what I have to do, I must follow the standards, right? When I teach, but then I add my African stuff. So I actually have to work hard, because I do the both thing. I have to teach you, for example, in child development, Jean Piaget, right? I have to make sure you understand Piaget. But guess what? After I teach you that, then I tell my students, my Piaget is A.B. and Saminon from Cameroon, right? So I have to work harder, right? Because I have to teach the standard plus. So until we own our own schools, the teachers will have to do both. Now, the DKI, I get paid a little extra change over here, so the money that that will supplement. But I'm saying that, yeah, it's public education, public dollars. There's rules, regulations, and then on the curriculum committee, oh my God, I wrote a Black child development curriculum. It was so much to get it through, because they kept saying, no one knows about this. It's like, yeah, I know, right? And so once it got through, then they wouldn't offer it, so I like give me back my stuff. So it's a lot of work that needs to be done. But please understand that in public education, you have to follow a particular curriculum. I'm just leave it there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Great.
Thank you.
I want y'all to stay up here with the mic thing, and I got somebody to take a picture. Oh, okay. And I want Sarah to get up here too.
All right, there y'all have it. It's been a great session, talking about education, talking about the effects that Dream Keeper. We are in Chicago, DKI's here. great event, great information from Dr. Lucky, Dr. Numbley, Dr. Sy, Dr. Davis. Great information. So we got some more things we got to get to, but we're here in Chicago, blessing them with the spirit and the work that's going on in San Francisco. See y'all. Oh, let me take it.